All right, in this video, we're getting started on working with linear equations. And so here's just an application I wanted you to think about. So here we have this company, Net Movies, that charges a monthly fee of $13 plus $2 per movie to rent movies from them. All right, and here I'm asking you to complete a table. All right, so in a month in which you just rented one movie, you would pay $13, but then you'd also pay $2 for the movie that you rented, which means the cost that month would have been $15. Okay. Now, if in some month you rented two movies, would it be double that? Would it wind up being $30? Okay. The answer would be no, because that flat fee would be paid just that month, the flat fee of $13. Then you would just owe $2 for each of those movies that you rented. So it wouldn't turn out to be $30. You'd wind up owing 13 plus 4, which is $17. Okay? So the cost didn't double, the cost just went up by $2 for that extra movie. So if in a month we rented 3 movies instead, you would expect it to go up another $2 to be 19. And we can see that would be the case because you would have paid the flat fee of 13 and then $2 for those 3 movies. 13 plus 6 would give you 19. So a quick way of getting the next 2 lines would be realizing we're just renting one more movie each time. So we can see that the cost would have gone up to 21 when you rent 4, and it would have gone up to 23 when you rent 5 movies. And we can see that also if we had just calculated it. 13 plus $8 would have been 21, or the flat fee of 13 plus $10 would have wound up being 23. Right now, when you get to making a jump, like I'm having you do here, seeing how much it would cost to rent 12 movies, that's when it's a little harder. You still could do it, still could think about making the jump, but it's not just going to be $25 because I was going up by just one movie here, right, each time. But now I'm not just going up by one movie. So you could analyze it by saying I'm going up 7 movies and then thinking about how, so that should go up $14, right? So it should go up $14, and 14 plus that would be 37. But we could, now that we've noticed each time, if you look at it, every single time we have to pay that flat fee of 13. Every single time we have to pay $2 per movie. And then the piece that's changing is how many movies we rented. So this time we rented 12 movies, and 13 plus 24 would give us 37. 13 plus 24 would have given it to us. Okay? So by looking at that pattern that we see and looking at what's staying the same and what's changing, that would enable us to work towards this question right here that's asking you to figure out an equation that would, for the monthly cost in terms of how many movies you rented. Okay? So we want it to be something like C equals and then some expression over here that has an M in it. And a good way to do that is to go back up to the pattern you've created and analyze these patterns, kind of like we did back in chapter 1 when we were looking at figuring out patterns to things. What I'm going to do is let M be the number of movies, and then I noticed that no matter how many movies, we always had 13 plus 2 times something, and when it was 12, we put a 12 in the parenthesis. When it was 5, we put a 5 in the parenthesis. So when it's an M, we can put an M there. Now, we can't come up with a number for what that would turn out to be, but what we have is an expression, like a formula that we could use to figure out what the cost would be. So the number of movies, I just let it be M, and then the monthly cost I called C. C stood for cost. And so what we now know is that we could have written the cost would equal 13 plus 2M. And when you write something like 2M, that's 2 times M. That's the same as multiplication. So if you even read the words, it said the monthly cost. If we went back to where it had the words, the monthly cost was 13 plus $2 per movie, so 2 times M, and that was the monthly cost. Okay, so we could have gotten it from the words or noticed it by studying the pattern and noticing that the 13 was a constant, was always in the pattern, was there. The plus, the 2 times. What changed was this part right here, and whatever you had to the left, that's what wound up being in the parentheses. Okay? All right, now, let me go ahead and continue. I'll go back to the graph later. So if I needed to figure out how much it would cost to rent 8 movies, if I had a formula like this, then I wouldn't really have to think about the context. Somebody's already done that for me, and all I would have to notice is that 8 movies means M would equal 8. And so what I would do is I would just take this formula, and right there where M used to be, I'm going to put an 8 right there. And so I would just be able to calculate this without really thinking about the flat fee and how much it is per movie. Just go ahead and use the formula, plug it in. Wouldn't have to think so hard. Just plug it in and take your 13 plus 16 and get your 29 movies and be done. I mean $29, not movies. That was the cost, that it would cost you $29, okay? Now, we already did that type of thing, but when we were doing it up here in the table, we were having to think a little bit about, wait, we have a flat fee, we're paying $2 per movie, and all of that. All right, just taking a look at what we had, what we got, makes sense. 8 movies is between 5 and 12, and we came up with a number that was between the cost for 5 movies and the cost for 12, okay? All right, now, if you had a budget of $50 to spend and you were trying to figure out how many movies you could rent, okay, you could do it without knowing the formula. You could do it by just having to think through the context. If you got $50 to spend, you know you're going to have to pay a flat fee of 13. So we could subtract that and see that we have $37 available for the movies, okay, to spend on the movies. Okay, so let's say you have, I should have said a budget of $50 per month. Like that's what you potentially could spend per month. Well, then you could take that 37 and you could divide it by the $2 per movie, right? That's the charge per movie. If you divide by $2 per movie, okay, when you do that, when you divide that, you can just use a calculator, you wind up getting 18.5 movies, okay? All right, so then if you're thinking about the question, so that means, so I could rent 18 movies. It's doubtful the business would say, go ahead and get 19 of them. Okay. You'd have to round down. Even though it's a 5, you wouldn't round up to 19 because that would be the business just giving you a movie that you didn't have enough money to pay for. Okay. You can get 18 movies and you'd have actually $1 left, okay, to spend. All right, now, the equation we had said the cost would equal 13 plus 2M. If I wanted to do it and not think so hard, what I could do is put the 50 in right here, right? 50 is the cost. Okay. So I know that 13 plus 2m would have to be 50 or less. So what I could have done, instead of thinking about the context and kind of doing it using common sense, which is what we did here. Common is spelled with 2 M's. Let me get that right. This is kind of using your common sense, just you being a consumer and kind of thinking through things. If I did have the formula and I wanted to use the formula, I could do that. And then I wouldn't have to really think so hard. You would just have to solve this equation. And when you learn how to do that, when you get back up to speed on that, or when you learn how to do that, it's almost like an automatic process. You don't have to agonize about how to do it. So we already know what we did using our common sense, but notice if once I teach you how to solve a linear equation, or review that if you've done it before, what you'll learn is that I could subtract 13 to get rid of the 13 over there, because I'm trying to get the m by itself, and that would be helpful. Notice that's the first thing we thought about doing a second ago, and that gets us to 2m equaling 37. And then just the idea that solving equations is all about kind of undoing what's been done to the variable. We'd have to think about, 2 is being multiplied by m. We could just say, so I know I need to divide by 2. And then that would give you the 18.5. So then you would say 18 movies. Okay. So this right here is what section 6.1 is all about. We're going to, at the start of 6.1, we're going to be reviewing how to solve linear equations. And then near the end, we're going to be working on solving some word problems by using algebra.